I think most STR operators, the small mom and pop ones, when you start to get to like 6, 7 to maybe 10 listings, it starts to get to a point where you're like, holy smokes, like I'm getting hit up all the time. There's a boatload to deal with. Like I need some help. But then you're almost to this point where you're like, do I want to invest in all the software? Do I want to invest in going to these conferences to learn all these best practices? Do I want to pay for all this stuff that on the surface costs money until you kind of break through and get that scale?
Quick favor before we jump in. It always surprised me that a large percentage of people who listen to this show regularly haven't yet subscribed. If you're a commercial real estate operator, investor, or builder who values conversations like this around deals, capital, and technology, please take 2 seconds and hit subscribe. It's a simple, free way to support the show. My commitment to you is that my team and I will continue bringing you higher level operators, stronger conversations, and real execution level insights every single week. Thank you. I truly appreciate it. Welcome back to the AI Edge podcast, where we have real conversations with operators, founders, and growth leaders who scale companies with systems, not noise. Today's episode is about tenacity, execution, and building growth engines that actually work across industries. My guest today is Vince, Chief Growth Officer and co-owner of Homehop Property Management, real estate fund manager, entrepreneur, healthcare veteran, and best-selling author. Vince has built and scaled businesses across healthcare, SaaS, consumer products, and now short-term rentals, all while leveraging systems technology and disciplined execution. Vince, welcome to the show.
Right. Hello.
Vince, you've had a really unique path in healthcare, nursing product development, SaaS, real estate funds. Walk us through your journey.
Yeah, I think I'm on maybe my third career at this point. So, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but my story started at being an ICU nurse at the Cleveland Clinic in their cardiothoracic ICU. I went on to work at Duke University Hospital, again in the cardiothoracic ICU. Then I ended up doing travel nursing where I moved all over the country, even lived down on St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands, which was pretty neat. And then ultimately got into teaching at the college level. All that while I was working, I actually saw a need because I saw my own grandparents fall getting in and out of bed and thought, geez, there has to be a better way. So I started coming up with this idea of a product called the Step to Bed, which, like it sounds, is the most deluxe bedside step for an older senior citizen that you can imagine to help reduce falls and help them age in place. I did that all part-time while I was working a full-time job. I started to grow that company, and at the time, I transitioned out of teaching to the business side of healthcare, where I started at the very bottom and I'm completely self-taught. And I kind of take a lot of pride in that because, again, there's a lot of folks who, waffle on the fence whether to do something or not. And it's like, just go for it. Dig in, learn your stuff, and go start making moves. I grew my career then in sales in the healthcare space. I worked for a IT hardware and managed service provider in senior living. And then I got hired at the largest software and e-learning company for continuing education and compliance in healthcare, called Relias. Relias is about a $290 million a year company. Again, market leader for continuing education. I grew and was a top performing sales professional. Then I moved into more of a product launch leadership role where I helped steer rollouts for 3 different products over a number of years with that group, ultimately grew to a partner level. And all the time I was investing in real estate with these guys that I knew and always just made the money they told me I was going to make. So fast forward, I said, hey, why don't we start a real estate fund where, we can raise money, go buy homes, and then turn them into short-term rentals. And then with that, we did our first fund. It went well. Everybody's making the money they said they thought they would. And now we're on our second fund. But through all that, I said, hey, there's enough there. I'm going to quit my full-time job and go all in with these guys. So now, I'm an owner in the fund. I'm an owner in the property management business. We're up to over 100 homes that we manage doing short-term rentals. We're seeing really great growth there. And then that products business that I started way back, I grew for over 8 years. We did over 15 million of lifetime sales, served over 70,000 customers, had a 4.6 out of 5 rating with over 5,000 reviews, and just actually had an exit there. So, it's been a fun journey. I look back and sometimes just wonder, if I made the right choice or the wrong choice, but it's been a fun ride nonetheless. And yeah, that's how I got here today.
Congratulations on exiting. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
What's the common thread across all those different chapters?
Energy, fun, go get it. Don't, outwork everybody. I don't claim to be the smartest person, although, I take a lot of pride in being a constant learner. I set a goal to read 20 books a year. Last year I think it was 19, so I didn't quite hit my goal. But again, when you compound that over decades, you start to realize that it really adds up. And like I said, none of this stuff was handed to me. None of it was, something I learned in school that made me super special. It was like, if you want it, just go start working your butt off to do it. Read everything you can, plug into, networks where you can, and try to, model behavior that you think will help you get there. So I don't think it's any like fundamentally like difficult concept to understand or something overly complex, but really is just about rolling your sleeves up and saying like, I'm deciding that I'm going to go do it. Like, that's it. It's over. Like, I'm going to go do it. And whatever it takes, I'm going to just figure it out. And through that, I think it's allowed me to overcome a lot of challenges and obstacles. Cause like everybody, you fall down way more than you reach the mountaintop, and it's just the name of the game.
Vince, where did your focus on systems and execution come from?
I think for me, it's trying to take myself out of the equation. Like any great business, if you are required to be there for it to operate, it's really just a job. You might make a lot, but it's not really a business. A business to scale, it's got to be able to do it without you. And so I always try to look at like what we're doing and think, how can I systematize it? It's never been easier today with AI. We use AI so many different ways in the business. It's me and my colleagues laugh and joke all the time. Like, geez, can you imagine building this without AI today? Like how hard it would be. So I just think we're in this really interesting place of like being able to leverage tools and systems more than we ever have before, but trying to remove myself from that and put, plans in place will help, hand it off. Like I always say, I want it to be written down so I can hand it to somebody and they can do it. And once you kind of start taking that approach, I think it does really allow you to, look at your day and think, what am I doing versus what could be systematized?
Amazing. You described your career journey in one word, tenacious. Why that word?
Well, because there's been some ups and downs. There was a time where I had over $1 million of debt with my step to health business, made some bad decisions, a couple tough years, had horrible accounting, thought I was making money. I was losing money. I'm going, where's the cash? And it wasn't until I just kind of kept pushing, kept fighting, kept trying that you just kept, kind of uncovering those opportunities. I think there's an old quote, and I don't know who said it originally, but they said opportunity oftentimes is described as somebody in overalls, out in the field working, right? It's like, the opportunity came because you were working every day at it. Nothing fell in my lap. And so again, not anything that your audience couldn't emulate and do themselves, but it's just about like not giving up,
What separates tenacity from burnout?
Probably the thing that separates it is like genuinely enjoying what you're doing. I think if you don't love what you do, and now look, I don't love every part of what I have to do every single day, but I love the outcome. I love the process. I love the challenge, and nothing feels better when that goal or objective's out there and you work your butt off and you finally get it. And like that will give you so much fulfillment. And again, I think for me, there's certainly times where I've been burnt out. I mean, even with the business I exited, like I started to lose a little bit of passion for the day to day of it. And that's, I think, when I knew it was probably time to sell and let somebody else take it who really felt like they could put their own touch on it and grow it and, all that. So I do think there is that fine line. But again, burnout, I think, is one of those things that is talked about a lot more in society today than it ever has been. And I think more folks are aware of like, am I getting burnt out? But when your back's up against the wall, like you got no choice. and there's lots of things I could probably ramble on to continue to say, but that would be the main thing, is just finding things that you enjoy, and it will help you when it gets really tough. It will get hard. It will not be easy. It will not always go up and to the right. It will not always be without, issues. So you've got to just love what you're doing as a whole. Otherwise, you'll start to get pretty annoyed with it.
You worked heavily in regulated healthcare environments and now in real estate in STRs or short term rentals. What operational lessons carried over cleanly?
I mean, I think the old adage of measure twice, cut once is kind of a good one, just to double check things, trust but verify, like very simple concepts that it's easy when you see an opportunity to think, oh gosh, now we just run towards it, right? Because if we're there first, it's going to make a difference, right? But, I love the saying, like, go slow to go fast. And it's probably said different ways, but like, there's a property right now in a suburb of Cleveland that I really like, that I got my eyes on, but I got to make sure, is it allowed to be an STR? If it is there any regulations on it? If I want to do rehab on it, I have to use certain vendors and contractors that are registered with that specific municipality. And so there's all sorts of regulation on the real estate stuff. A lot of it's relatively easy to map out and kind of check. I will say, on the other side, when I worked in not only healthcare, it's obviously highly regulated at some of the top facilities in the country, but then when we worked in healthcare compliance, education, and training, every different discipline, whether it's acute care, post-acute care, the government space, HHS, whether you're working with hospitals or clinics, what state you're in, profit, nonprofit, it's very complex. Now, I didn't navigate all that myself. We had entire teams of people as a 1,000-person tech company. So they had an entire compliance department that made sure that the content you're putting out met all those requirements, because it is quite technical and just not something that's easy to navigate. So again, I think it's going slow to go fast, making sure you got the right info before you just go all in trying to, tackle the world.
That's awesome. What surprised you about scaling property management versus healthcare?
I think the property management's more fun.
Yeah, right.
I now look, everybody's different, right? But I like looking at real estate, and I like talking to people about how you're going to make money, right? If you do that, like what we do now, I love, because it
Yeah,
just comes down to the numbers.
sure.
It's like, look, you can do it this way or this way, and this way makes you X. So do you want to make more money per month? And I can help you on all this tax stuff. There's a huge tax component to what we do. Whereas in healthcare, it's like a cost that they have to avoid like penalties. It's a cost they have to train their staff to make sure there aren't issues that cause fines. It's harder to get really excited about, like, well, if you buy this, there's less likelihood your staff's going to mess up. And it's just a little bit of a different conversation. There's a lot more buying parties and interested people and committees and long sales cycles, where with the home, when we talk to an owner, it's like, hey, you're not happy. We've got a process, a solution, and a way to help you get more money. Like, we can start tomorrow. When do you want to start making more money? And it's way more immediate gratification, and it's way more fun working with those folks, because it's less corporate stuff you got to deal with when you're selling into large organizations. Not going to maybe be quite as lucrative on a per sale basis, but I can close 10 of them in the time it takes me to, maybe close one on the other end. So just, it's a little more fun for me. And I kind of like helping people, position themselves to have a better outcome in that way.
Love it. Let's talk about Homehop. Homehop has scaled fast, over 100 properties, premium positioning, high ratings. What did you get right early?
So again, going back to those processes and systems, the founders, I'm not one of the founders. There's two guys who are the founders who I was investing with, and then they invited me in as an owner. So they really lean into processes and systems, especially the CEO. He's a CPA by trade, and he worked at a Y Combinator out of the Bay that grew really fast. It was an AI software for B2B that was for accounting to help them shorten their reconciliation period. And so he's kind of taken a tech focused approach to how he's built the company. Those two guys, especially, we use 31 softwares in the business today to really operate at just the top of the market and help operate with peak efficiency from our team's perspective. So, those are kind of the things that we've really leaned on, and it allows us to get a better outcome. So it leads to great reviews, leads to happy partners. They tell their friends, leads to more sales. It kind of just starts that flywheel of like, a lot of our sales now, we're doing a lot of outbound stuff, but we're getting a lot more inbound stuff. Hey, I got your name from so and so. They're happy. One call, I'm happy. Send me the agreement. The next day it's closed. I mean,
Nice.
that gets you excited, right?
That's
Is like,
amazing. That's
man, that's awesome. So
great.
yeah, it's just about like doing things the right way and trying to build those, best in class. I'll just, round this out with one more point about like we plug into a number of different groups that are mastermind groups where we meet with them. The nice thing about what we do too is like, yeah, they're all property managers like us, but they're in different markets. So it's okay if you're in Florida and I'm in Ohio, like we could share learnings all day because it ain't going to subtract what we're doing to each other. And so there is a great camaraderie in the space among operators because most folks geographically kind of stick to a certain area. But then, like, I can learn things that they're doing and implement it in our business. And we just recently implemented a tool from somebody and it started to add significant revenue to our business with very minimal change. So, new software, new process, paid for by the guest, ultimately protects the guest better, but also leaves us a little bit more money when it's all said and done too. So great outcome, but again, learning from others who are operating best in class, using processes, systems, softwares to do it well.
That's amazing. Can you share with us a little bit about that tool? I mean, you don't have to give the name if you don't want to, but I mean, what does it do?
In effect, like it will say you can either pay $10 and any incidental that occurs at the property will cover, or you can just put a few $100 code on your card. And then if something happens, we'll charge your card. Well, a lot of times they just pay for that, $10 or $20 amount, but then nothing ever happens. And now they didn't have a hold on their card. They get the protection, which gives them some peace of mind. And then if we don't have anything we have to replace, we put that money in our pocket.
That's amazing. Excellent. What systems matter most as you scale?
One system we use quite a lot is a system called Notion. And with Notion, what we do is we create an SOP for everything in the business. And going back to AI, say something happens and we need to create a process. Here's what we do. We pull up our screen. We'll make a Loom video and we'll talk through. Here's what you do. Here's where you click. Here's the way to handle it. Here's how you save it. Here's this. Here's that. Well, it gives you a whole transcript. We'll take the video, we'll add it into Notion. We'll take the transcript, add it into Notion. We'll take the transcript, throw it in ChatGPT and say, make an SOP out of this, and lives in Notion. Now Notion and whoever is on our team has total visibility of how to handle every situation. Well, what happens when that guest messages us at 3 in the morning and says, I have a problem? All that data per property is in that system. The AI can actually respond to them in almost real time. Now, we have guest messaging specialists around the clock that are on board, but at the end of the day, it's a very trusted source for us to continue to pour data into, to continue to teach the AI how to help the guest in a faster way. And so that's one that we really love. We use dynamic pricing software. We love that because it helps us flex with the market based on supply and demand, get the most price, or to lower our price and get the most bookings. And then another one is a property management software that we use. This allows our cleaners to take before and after photos, document it, list in all the maintenance requests, categorize it off of severity and high, medium, or low need in terms of how quickly our maintenance team should get there. And so those are some of the like foundational tools that we use in the business that just without them, it would be very hard to kind of keep all this information straight.
Where do you think most STR operators break when they grow?
It's like most businesses, right? To grow from 10 to 50, it takes a certain set of tools. Then to grow from 50 to 100, then 100 to 200, right? You kind of always have to keep reinventing the business in a sense. I think most STR operators, the small mom and pop ones, when you start to get to like 6, 7 to maybe 10 listings, it starts to get to a point where you're like, holy smokes, like I'm getting hit up all the time. There's a boatload to deal with. Like, I need some help. But then you're almost to this point where you're like, do I want to invest in all the software? Do I want to invest in going to these conferences to learn all these best practices? Do I want to pay for all this stuff that on the surface costs money until you kind of break through and get that scale? So again, I think there's probably levels to it where it trips people up, but I think not feeling like you can take yourself out of the business, like Barbara Corcoran, the esteemed Shark Tank gal. She has a principle that's very simple that she says, if you can find somebody who can do the job 80% as good as you, that's enough. Like, don't think that everybody's going to do it as good as you. They probably can't, right? Because you came up with it, you've been doing it a long time, right? But if they can do it about as 80% as good, that's enough. Hand it off. Shift your focus back to growing, right? Working in the business versus working on the business. And those are the kinds of things that you have to be able to let go of as you scale, because you just can't do it all yourself. And again, I've worked at large $300 million a year companies. I've grown my own to, a fair amount, and this one, of course, as well.
You mentioned leveraging tools, including AI, to grow, but where is it hype versus real leverage?
I think if you walk a trade show floor today, for whatever industry you're in, anybody who has any tech portion of their business is like, well, we're AI for this and we use AI for that. And a lot of it's fluff. A lot of it is like things that they were already doing and they just put AI on it. And it's like, well, this helps match you. And we use an algorithm. And it's like, well, are you just private labeling a product, or did you build this technology? Like, how does it match? How's your algorithm work? And they start to get a little like hairy in terms of the way they respond. What's hype versus what's real? I mean, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt that, like, most people, I think, do believe that their product helps people, right? A lot of times there is some unique feature that does help people. But like, we are to a point in our business where it's like, your product better make a damn difference if we're going to shift what we're doing, because it's a lot of work to integrate a new product and to migrate, 100 plus homes to a new thing and like have it integrated. You're not going to do it because it might save you, 5 minutes here or there, or you're not going to do it because there's just one feature. It does really need to be like definitely different. And then I would say where a lot of groups run into issues when they're selling products and solutions is not being able to integrate at scale. And so like for the old SaaS company I worked with, we rolled out a compliance solution called Compliance Pro Suite. And it helped do all this stuff around rules and regulations, your policies, and making sure you are within the guidelines of what you should be doing. It was okay for the small groups, but when you start to get to real enterprise conversations, it just didn't have all the bells and whistles, right? And that's okay. Sometimes you grow in waves. You're not going to, start at the very enterprise thing as a startup. But I do think there is an element that if you are building a tool or a system for the market, thinking 3 to 5 years down the road about how you're going to integrate to be able to do it at scale will be one of the key factors. And if you plateau, or if you can keep scaling and start to get into those bigger accounts, everybody wants to have the massive whale account that's, going to change the financial landscape of your business. If you don't start today thinking through what that's going to take and building backwards, building that framework, building like the processes and everything out, you'll never get there. And so it does kind of go down to like having a really great founding team, helping, kind of see down the road what kind of obstacles are going to be. Again, especially with like SaaS companies, again, I spent almost a decade in that space. So pretty familiar with the landscape. Is like, if you have somebody who's been there, done that, and they're willing to be on your board, be an advisor, you give them a few points of equity and say, hey, come with me for the journey. I won't take up a ton of your time, but you can help me navigate those landmines. Just somebody in your corner saying, hey, 24 months from now, you're going to need to be doing this. You should start thinking today about how you prep for it, is so valuable, because when you're so young and in a small business, you're trying your hardest to just grow, right? Get new customers in the door and keep them, right? And so you don't always think through like, what's that customer 100 people from now going to look like? And what do I need to have my product do then that we can start working on now? So again, I would advise folks that are younger and trying something new to think through some of those points, and then ultimately help you get to that end goal faster.
Vince, what do you intentionally not automate or you don't automate?
I think from my perspective, I'm able to take a strategic lens that you can't always defer to AI for an answer on. There's certain things that like I just flat out can do better than anybody. And with those, like those are going to always, I ask myself, is this worth your time in terms of revenue driving activities? I'm our chief growth officer. I have the best job in the company because I get to help people. I get to bring them in, and then I get to hand them off to somebody and they do all the operational stuff. So
Nice.
I love my role. So keep in mind that like I'm not speaking as a CEO right now, but really as a chief growth officer in this role, that like handling these client conversations as we've gotten, interested parties, it's going to be something that I can just do better than anybody. I'm able to speak with a ton of conviction because our team does a great job. We have great ratings. I'm able to tell the story. There's an old saying in sales, facts tell, stories sell. I can give examples and just like really do it in a very high level way that I can't automate it. I mean, I've tried. I tried using in one of my last companies, one of these AI sales bots to make outbound calls because I thought I got a bunch of leads that I want to call, but I don't have enough time. I'll use AI. It's very hard to make those work. And so there's certain things like even that I want to try, but we've tested it and it's not quite there yet. I think it's a little different with inbound calls versus like an outbound, like cold call. So that would be one area that I believe in inside sales and like cold calling as one of the best ways to grow a business. All this other stuff is great and it helps, but like when it gets down to it, real people talking to real people is going to be the fastest way to close a deal. And that's one thing today that I probably can't automate. Now, what I'm doing is we're actually hiring BDR right now that's going to be able to have more initial conversations. But again, we're going to spend a little more. We're going to do it the right way. We're going to get somebody who's actually going to get those interested parties. And then I can step in and help get them further down the funnel, if you will. So that's how we've thought about it today.
Love it. Pick up the phone, right?
Pick up the phone. It's like, have you ever talked to the person? Did you
Right.
just try like asking them a question or two and seeing what they say? I don't know why folks are so scared of it. I think too, it is a little scary. I remember, God, I remember when I first started sales and in that role, we were selling one-on-one meetings. So we sold a summit. So kind of different than a conference where it's kind of like come one, come all. This is like a summit where it's like 150 CEOs or C-suite executives and then like 100 companies and they're doing these like speed date meetings. So companies pay to get access to these folks that are just really tough to reach. So we'd have to call the solution providers and basically call a CEO. I was this nurse coming into business. I didn't know nothing about, selling. And I remember the first time getting on a call, my voice shaking so bad. And I couldn't hardly finish the sentences because I thought, boy, this person's a CEO. Like, man, it's just so crazy. And I kind of chuckle looking back now because of course I've grown my skill set and like kind of what my chops were. And the thing about when you talk to CEOs, there's kind of two veins, right? On one vein, I love the saying in business, you get sent to who you sound like in business. If you talk like a manager, and you call the executive assistant, they're going to say, oh, we better have you talk to the manager over here. If you sound like an executive and you get that leader or that EA on the phone, they're going to be like, it sounds like they need to speak to the boss, right? So there is some level of like, you get sent to who you sound like. But at the same time, when you're sitting there and you're BSing with an executive, they're the exact same as you. They got their kids, they got their family, they got their, they're dealing with the snow just like you. They're doing all the stuff that just like you, and they're really not that different. And when you just approach them and you focus on the relationship, getting to know them and asking good questions, you don't come off needy or desperate. It just kind of sets this tone of like, we're peers here. I have something of value that, yeah, of course, ultimately I want to show it to you. But at the end of the day, like, you seem like a nice guy. I'll be a nice guy or gal. And like, let's just have a conversation. There's really not that much more to it that I think sometimes can get a little, messy or maybe intimidating.
How hard was it to get them on the phone for the very first time?
That was brutal. It was brutal. You'd make 100 calls with the hope of maybe talking to one or two people, but I did learn some pretty cool tricks to get people on the phone. I've used burner accounts. I've called blocked. You call them, they don't answer. You call right back and they think, well, geez, somebody must have called me twice. It must be important. I might answer that time. Oh, sorry. The first one dropped while I was leaving a voicemail. Well, since I got you here, and you go right into your pitch. So learn, dial by name directories are good. Calling before hours, calling during lunch when maybe the EA's away. Hey, do CEOs work late? You bet. Well, their EA goes home at 5. You call them at 5:50 p.m. You might just catch them because they're going, someone else probably working. They're calling me because most salespeople went home at 5. right? And so you kind of learn some of those tricks to get them. But yeah, man, it was tough calling those folks. And so anyway, yeah, it's a little different these days.
How'd you get over the fear? What was your mindset switch that got over that fear of calling? Because I remember when I started calling for the very first time, I had the fear of God in me, right? It was scary.
And I've had people tell me, the worst things you'd say to your enemy, that tell you to buzz off and whatnot. I think just doing it. It's like anything. It's scary at first, but you do it and then you do it again, you do it again and do it again. And then you have a deal that closes and you think, now I can do it. Right. And so I think it's like anything, just you keep trying and trying and trying. And that's what helped me get over it. And, again, yeah.
Excellent. You've helped launch and manage real estate funds. What do LPs actually care about that founders often miss?
So I think a lot of folks will talk about the return. And you start to learn that when you're pitching to high net worth individuals, there are so many options for them to invest in that all have roughly the same kind of return. I think, okay, well, ours is 20% annual return. It's like, that's everywhere, dude. Everybody's got a fund that does something that can give them 20%. It's really not unique at all. I think getting to know the person, understanding, what they look for in an investment. Are they looking for alternatives? Are they looking for something with the tax play? Do they like certain sectors? So again, asking good questions. There is an element of like, you better have a really catchy one-liner. I like to be able to articulate what we do in one line, not even 30 seconds, like
Let's hear
6 seconds.
it.
Well, for like so like right now we have our fund. And when I was at the last capital raising event, I go to a lot of like family office events where you're pitching family office folks, but then everyone else there, like me, has a fund or something they're doing. So I say we work with high income earners to help them reduce their taxable income through niche real estate investing, like short-term rentals. And then, for family offices, I would say we offer what was the exact way I said it? I was practicing a lot right leading up to the event. I want to say it correctly too. Basically something along the lines of, we have a tax like deferred plan to help you allocate funds into a short-term rental fund. So it's really just about like the tax piece is kind of where we've been leaning in a lot more, because whether you're a high net worth individual or you manage a fund or something else, like everybody wants to pay lower taxes. And that's something that almost no one else can offer. So when we sell our fund, it's like, oh, by the way, we also have a passive approach if you like this space, that if you just want to invest in our fund, and it comes with tax breaks too. But this other one, you can take losses against your active ordinary income. So a lot of high earners work with us, doctors, lawyers, tech folks, where they're making 500 to $1 million a year and they're getting burned. They're getting crushed on taxes. We can help you lower that taxable income, and you're left with a property that's a 18 to 25% return.
Man,
So, again, it's not for everyone. Like this might not be for you, but, just thought I'd share and just see if that was something maybe you knew of anybody that might be a fit for us. Yeah, that was the one liner at the last show that I went to. And now I'm bummed. I can't think of the way I was saying it. I had a snazzy way I was saying it, but again, it's about trying to understand who you're talking to, right? I know what it was. It was a tax advantage yield is how we phrase that to family offices. We help family offices with the tax advantage yield through niche real estate, short-term rental investing. And that kind of goes back to like, what language do they use? Because I never said tax advantage yield. That ain't something I say every day. But for them, that's how they think about like shepherding money in these family offices that they support. And so that was the way I would say it. So it's about kind of knowing who you're talking to.
that's wonderful. Where do systems come in that equation? I know we talked about taxes, right? How do systems protect investors' trust?
Well, I think with LPs specifically, they want to know you've done your due diligence. So one, we work with a legal group that helps funds specifically get set up. It's a Fund B Reg D fund. And so we can accept accredited and non-accredited investors. But with that, we built out a data room. Again, it kind of goes back to like modeling other people who've done that and just model their behavior, right? What did you have in your data room? Well, you had your P&L, you had your past performance, you had all your investor docs, you had your spreadsheet, you had a 1-minute overview video, you had, 10 other things. Okay, let's just build them out. So what do? We took their stuff, we put it into AI, we said, do it this way. It spits it out. You refine it, go give it to the designers. Boom, it's done. What's the next one? And you just do that process, right? Don't overcomplicate it. Find somebody who's ahead of you, model what they're doing, use AI to make it as good as it can, and then keep running, right? And so that's kind of the way we've attacked it. But I think LPs, they want to know that you have done the due diligence, you have it all there, because I'll pretty much guarantee nobody looks through that data room top to bottom. They don't even care what it says. They just want to know that you did the research. And so I don't always think it's like, now I'm not saying to take it lightly. You should, it is a big responsibility when you take money from people, because if you lose it, you're going to either get sued or they're going to ruin your name and they're never going to invest with you again. And the way you get rich, in my eyes, is you get those repeat customers and they tell their friends. And I tell the people that, I said, look, if I lose your money, you're never going to want to talk to me again. So I will do anything legally that I can to make sure you don't lose your money, period. And I'll work like hell no matter what it takes, even if I make zero, to make sure you're whole, right? And so again, like, doing those things are pretty simple, but we keep ours simple. We use Dropbox. It's not some sophisticated platform. We don't have all these bells and whistles because we're still small. And in some regards, that's okay. And I think it's kind of like a building block for us. We wanted to take a crawl, then walk, then run approach, just for our own kind of like sanity and making sure we weren't like being careless. But what's crazy is, like, we did a $2 million fund. Now we're on a $5 million fund, which we're about $2 million raised, and we're, plugging right along and having good conversations. But I told the guys, when you go to raise money, I said, what's funny is, we could, instead of raising $5 million to go buy 50 homes, we should put a zero on the end of everything we're doing and go raise $50 million to buy 500 homes. I said, you think it's crazy, but it's probably easier to do that, because when you're so small, LPs, it's too small of a deal for them. If you've got $200 million a year to deploy, you don't want to make a $2 million investment. You want to make a $25 or a $50 million investment, and you want like 4 or 5 through the year. But if you're really small, all those folks are out. And then the next rung down of people that maybe say, well, I'll put in $1 million or $2 million. They don't want to put in $2 million of a $5 million fund and be your biggest shareholder. So it's a little harder actually when you're small, because you're a little too big for friends and family, unless you just got some really rich friends and family, but then you're not quite big enough. And then you get to a certain level and the LPs say, well, let's look at your data room. I want to see audited financials from one of the big four. I want to see, all these other things. But if you're not big enough, you don't have the capital to go spend $80,000 on a study, right? And so there's this element of like, it's smart to crawl, then walk, then run. But at a certain point, like, once you've proved to yourself that you can do it, but again, we didn't feel confident taking $50 million from somebody because we didn't have a way to deploy it fast enough. And so it was a little bit of like, we want to be responsible too. And so again, I know I'm down in a rabbit hole right now that may not be relevant for a lot of people, but I constantly come across folks all the time that the whole concept of that raising 50 versus 5 is like, it's bonkers to people. Most people think like, that doesn't make sense. I would never do that. But it's like this in a short-term rental. Do you think it's easier to rent a home that's a 6-bedroom, 5,000 square foot mansion on a lake with a pool? It's got a game room. It's got a this, it's got a that. Or is it easier to rent a 2-bedroom townhouse in the back of a cul-de-sac? Well, it's way easier to rent the big one, right? You can market it better. You can promote it better. It's going to make more money so you can invest in more ads. It's actually easier to do it big than it is to do it small, because when it's small, it's not that different than what everyone else has. It's nothing really special about the place. There's really no amenities. Like, why would I rent there when I can rent a million other places? But when you get to that bigger one, it's actually easier. And so it's kind of a tough concept to wrap your head around. Again, still got to come up with the cash. So you got to be able to show a track record for someone to give you that money to do the bigger thing. But like, sometimes that bigger thing's a lot easier, actually.
You're a fund manager. Talk a little bit about credited versus unaccredited. Do you deal with very many uncredited investors?
We have a few. Unaccredited means you and your individual income is under 200,000 a year, or you and your wife's combined income is under 300,000 a year, or like another designation is you've got to have at least a million of assets excluding your primary residence. So we do deal with some non-accredited investors because we're, a little bit younger ourselves. We felt like our network, my partners are a couple years younger than me. We felt like our network, there might be a few unaccredited folks. And then most of our folks are accredited in terms of the investors that we will work with, but we wanted to kind of leave that option open. And since we didn't plan on doing a lot of public marketing and promotion where we're just out here with banner ads and Facebook ads saying, hey, invest with us, 20% return, yada, yada. You can't, if you're a B, you can't do that. But if you're a C and you only take accredited money, then you can go publicly promote the returns, the project. Now we can promote the projects, but we can't tell you that you're going to make X amount of return. We have to engage. We have to have some version of a relationship. And then I can tell you later on kind of what the returns are. So it's just a different philosophy. For some people, it might be better than others, one where, but that's the way my basic rudimentary understanding and explanation of it works. And I'm not a CPA. I'm not a lawyer. This is not financial advice. I have to throw that disclaimer in like we do on all of our collateral.
You spent years in sales, strategy, and go-to market. What breaks first when growth outpaces operations?
Just that customer experience. I mean, like we're going through this right now where we're growing like crazy, and I'm pushing our CEO saying, do we have enough designers? Do we have enough onboarding specialists? Do we have enough, operation folks to help support these deals? Because the last thing you want is to onboard somebody and then they have a bad first experience, bad first impression. So trying to keep those kind of on par with each other so your customer has a great experience, because again, first impressions matter, right? It's all the small, it's like none of this stuff I'm saying is that like first impressions matter. Like we've all heard that since we've been, this tall, right? And so I think it's just like something like that, because again, somebody comes in, they have a great experience versus a bad one. They're going to tell their friends, they're going to say this group's great or this group's not. They're going to leave that review. And it only takes a few bad ones for you're like, they're not that good. Had a bad experience. So I think it just goes back to serving your customer and trying to make sure they've got the support they need. And sometimes you maybe don't make as much money because you're going above and beyond to serve them. But I do genuinely believe that over time, it kind of all comes full circle.
How do you align marketing, sales, and delivery, Vince?
I don't know if I have a great answer. I think kind of goes back to like, just do what you say you're going to do, right? If I tell you that we're great, then be great, right? If I tell you I'm going to call you, just call you. Like what I really try to do is from a marketing and branding perspective, make sure that almost any like core complaint that I've gotten, we have a piece of collateral around. So one, I can speak to it intelligently. It's like anything. If you have to go through and articulate it, it forces you to learn it and understand it. So one, we really got clear on what objections we were getting in the marketing, in the sales process, and then built collateral for it so we can present that. Because there's something very powerful about someone seeing something in writing that makes them believe it. So now I can say it, I've got marketing to support it. And then when we go to do it, our contract says what our marketing says and our approach matches what our marketing says. So that deliverability of the experience is all going to be congruent. So for folks that are listening, I would ask you, like, if someone says, hey, I want to do long-term rental versus short-term rental, and I'm not sure which one I should do, we have collateral for that. Hey, I want to I would rather buy a place down at the beach versus where in Ohio, who goes there? Well, I have a piece of collateral. It shows the returns, right? Some are better, some are worse. Everything's different. I like to have collateral for everything. And maybe I'm a nutball in this way that I probably overdo it. But now I can say, hey, no problem. It's up to you. There's pluses and minuses. Why don't I send you something and let's see kind of where it leads us. And I'm able to, try to be as empathetic with them while supporting that decision process. And then if they do come around to us, then we can deliver on the things that we've said because we're all aligned.
Beautiful. Which markets are you in currently?
So we currently specialize in Ohio, but we are expanding now through Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. We really want to keep that Midwest kind of Rust Belt market. It's a little bit underserved. I mean, vacation rentals in Florida and in the beaches of Carolinas, they've been around forever. It's really hard to like stand out there. Property managers are a dime a dozen, not any disrespect, but like they've been doing vacation rentals in Florida all year round for the last 70 years, you know? Not many people in Ohio thinking about how do I do vacation rentals, right? So you can be a big fish in a small pond and really carve out that niche of being like a top operator. And it really has allowed us to grow to not only one of the largest operators in under like 4 years, but one of the highest rated. And now some of the things we're doing are like leaning into these really cool, like amenity driven homes. So now when you go and you look across Cleveland for a rental and you see three or four that are like, they've got a sauna, a hot tub, a pickleball court, a bunk bed slide. They got game rooms. They're decked out like bright colors, fresh design, neon lights. Like that place looks fun. Well, they're all managed by one company because they are looking ahead at where things are going, and the homes that are going to stand out and generate more bookings, more revenue. Again, a little bit more money up front, but now it's a highly defensible product that not everybody else has. Just easier to market. It's going to attract more eyeballs, and it's going to help you stand out and get better reviews. So that's kind of the route we've taken. Not that those other markets are bad, but we've kind of said, let's stay in our lane, and we might support homes, you know, from afar in other ways, but it isn't really our focus of growth.
I love it. I would rent that place in a heartbeat.
Right. You got kids, you're like, go ahead. The kids are going to love it. They got a game room. They're not going to be nagging me for something to do after about 10 minutes, you know? And so, yeah, we are leaning into that pretty hard right now.
Love it. You still carry a healthcare mindset, Vince. How has that shaped how you led your teams?
I don't know how much I think about it shaping the way I guide my team. I would say probably the one underlying principle is like empathy. You know, there's a whole 7 habits of highly successful people is ask first to understand, then to be understood. It's one of my favorite principles because it's very easy when something doesn't go right to go, come on, you should have done this. But instead it's like, well, why didn't it do it? Why do you think it didn't happen? What do you think should have went wrong? Okay, you've now explained yourself. I think I have a good picture. Here's what I want to see instead. And, you know, again, at the end of the day, when you're working in the cardiothoracic ICU and you've got a patient who's had a heart transplant that you've recovered and they go into like asystole or go into, you know, VTAC, and you're there shocking them, you're on their chest doing compressions, you've got them in Trendelenburg, you're dumping fluids on them, you're giving blood products, you're like 5, 6 people are on the bed, you're running the code, it's super intense. Like when somebody calls me that like, you know, they can't get into a house and I got to reset a lock code, like we'll get through it, you know, it's okay, you know? So I think there's just some context there that like I've been in some pretty high stress environments that like when it's all said and done, it's kind of just allowed me to grow my aptitude to where those kinds of things don't really, I guess, get to me as much. I think the same with like my old company, Step to Health, is like I would always like jokingly tell my wife and friends like the $5,000 problems don't really bother me anymore. It's like the 50,000 or the $100,000 problem, right? That starts to be like, shit, how am I going to figure this out, right? And there's levels to it. Because if I got $1 million problem, it you know scare the bejesus out of me, right? But I got friends who are like, yeah, the $1 million ones don't really bother me anymore. It's the $5 million ones. And you're like, dang, dude, we're just on a different level, right? And so it's all relative, right? You can't look at other people's stuff and think, oh, well, they're doing it big, right? Comparison is the thief of joy. It's just about leveling up, getting better each day, and like trying to take that mindset of like, what is going to bother me? What am I going to allow to control my day? And on that note, I'll say something that is a principle that I actually came up with this. I've never heard anyone else publicly say it, but I have an approach that I like to use to keep myself grounded. And it goes like this: don't worry about any problem you haven't had the chance to fix yet. How often do you get an email and it says, oh my gosh, so-and-so this, so-and-so that, and it's this, in your mind, you're already thinking, oh my gosh, it's going to be crazy. Like this is going to worry me. This is going to be tough. And you call them, they're like, oh, we just need you to fill out a form. And you're like, okay, like that's okay. That's all. I worried all day for nothing, right? So don't worry about anything you haven't just had the chance to try to fix yet. You'd be surprised how many of those things just at the end of the day, you're like, not that they're always easy, but there is a path to get there. And I do think that's something just from like that burnout and mental health perspective when you're grinding and working and trying to solve problems that like we all do it, right? I do it too. That's why I came up with the saying because it was driving me crazy because I'm worrying about all this stuff. And it's like, man, I just realized it one day, like most of this stuff I'm able to just solve pretty quick and easy. So anyway, thought your audience might get a kick out of that.
I love it. I hope it's a clip. Maybe we'll be sharing that one on LinkedIn.
There you go.
That's awesome. Why is empathy and execution, why aren't they opposites?
I don't know if there's, say, one set rule as to why they are or aren't opposites. I mean, I think empathy is just obviously trying to put yourself in the other person's position. How would they, how would I want them to treat me? But, business kind of comes down to just decision making and making tough decisions. A lot of sales leaders and business owners, if you'll ask them what one of their biggest regrets is that they waited too long to fire somebody. And that's a classic example of empathy and execution butting heads, right? Because I know Nancy. She's got a family. She tries hard. She works hard, but like she's not the right fit for what we need, right? Execution says she's gone. Empathy says like we like Nancy, like we want to see Nancy succeed, right? So I think naturally there is kind of that. There are times, I should say, where they butt heads. But I think, again, at the end of the day, being empathetic and still like being kind, even when you have to do difficult things to execute on like your vision, they can go hand in hand. I think, again, you'd feel a lot different if your boss pulled you aside and said, this isn't working. You're not the right fit for this. We want to help you. We're going to give you an off ramp. We're going to give you some severance. We're going to help you. Like, we're going to help clean up your resume. We're going to talk to our network. We're going to help you like get into a fit that's better. But today, this isn't a fit for us, right? And I'm not saying that's how you like let someone go. But there's a lot different than someone coming in saying, you're just not cutting it. Today's your last day. Like you can still be empathetic, right? And let someone go. And so again, I don't know if I have a better answer than that, but just knowing that, treat others the way you want to be treated. Just keep it simple.
Love it. Vince, let's have a little bit of fun here. Rapid fire. Ready?
Yep.
One growth mistake you see everywhere.
Trying to avoid the thing that will ultimately give you the best result. Most people don't want to pick up the phone because it's hard and scary. They'd rather spend all their time making the perfect social media post or the perfect system or process. It's like, no, just do the thing that you actually know is going to give you the best result.
One system every operator needs.
AI for everything, just about. If you're not using it and your competitor is, you're going to get smoked.
Best investment you've made, non-financial.
Just investing in myself. Every book I've ever bought, learning, trying to go to the webinar, go to the seminar, go to those meetup groups, get out, talk to people. But it comes back to just investing in yourself. It's pretty simple.
Tool you couldn't run without.
Again, just ChatGPT today is insane, whether you use Claude or Grok or Gemini, like whatever your AI tool of choice is. Nowadays, it's unfathomable. And I'll flip a quick question back to you. Sorry to disrupt our pace here, but I asked this recently. I was asking to our CEO, I said, okay, say we pay her $20 a month on ChatGPT. What amount would they have to charge per month for you to stop using AI? If they charged $1,000 a month, would you say, that's too much, or $2,000 or $5,000? My answer was right around, like realistically, like $4,000 to $5,000 in a business, because we're using it every day. And it saves us so much time and so much cost with legal stuff and everything else. So that's my question to you is, what amount of money would your top AI product tool need to charge for you to go, I'll just do it without it?
Well,
And you can't go to a free one. I'm talking, they all had to charge the same amount. You had to pick, right? For the fun of the question.
No, I agree. We are an AI agency, so we depend on AI a tremendous amount for our business, right? So I don't know that there's a cost that we wouldn't have to pay because we're really dependent on it and everything that we do, even our growth, even our outbound, even our outreach, right? Even our responses and our follow-ups and everything, right? As our business grows, it's continually using AI. So yeah, like $4,000 or $5,000, it would definitely be worth it because being a business, right? I mean, it's insane. How much do they charge you now? $20? I mean, it's unbelievable, right? And it used to be free. And it's still free. You can still get the free version.
You can still get a free version. Yeah. So yeah, it's, again, if you're just using it for recipes and a, travel or itinerary, yeah, $20 is probably your max. But when you use it for real in a business, like,
Yeah.
man, so valuable.
It's insane. It saves us hours and hours and hours, if not days and weeks of time for just doing the simple task, right? It's unbelievable.
Yep.
Vince, last one, advice that you would give your younger self.
Follow the money. The reason I got out of nursing is I wanted to get rich, and you can't get rich being a nurse. And so, for me, I think some people will claim that money doesn't matter to them, and maybe that's true for some people, but I'm not wired that way. Money's a very therapeutic byproduct of your work, right? So I think and I think probably the root of what I mean by that is like when you're trying something and it's not working, follow the money, pivot. Don't be so stuck in your ways of like, well, if I just keep pushing, like, how long are you going to try to fit a square peg in a round hole before you go, I need a different size of tool here, right? So that's what I mean. Not like make every decision financial, but like follow the money. Don't be afraid to pivot. Keep adjusting, keep learning, keep growing. Like, just don't be so stuck in just like that sunk cost fallacy, right? Of like, well, I've already invested so much time. It's like, scrap it. Who cares? Like, Kevin O'Leary, another Shark Tank guy, he says, if it ain't making money by 3 years, your business, take it out behind the barn and shoot it and move on to the next one. Right. And so I think there's an element of like, follow the money. So anyway.
Oh, I love that. Invest, right? Invest your money also, because I don't think you'll ever be able to outwork, being wealthy or rich or right. I mean, I think you really need to invest. Real estate.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Anybody who wants to invest in STRs, we can help you.
Perfect. Vince, where should people go if they want to follow your work and learn more about you online?
LinkedIn, great. You can just search my name. There's not many Vince Baieras out there. Instagram, if you want to connect on a personal level, but otherwise, easy just to Google me and you'll find me.
Do you have a website?
Just my LinkedIn for now, and and then we have homehop.com, which shows like what we're doing at our business.
Fantastic. Vince, this has been a great conversation. Thank you for sharing real operator level view. This has been the AI Edge podcast. If you're building systems, scaling teams, and investing in real assets, share this episode with someone in your circle. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, Vince.
You got it.